Hey guys, this is Shubham, and today I'm going to talk about the anti-hyperlipidemic drugs, which means the drugs which are going to act against the high concentration of lipid present in our blood. Okay, so before going into the detail of the anti-hyperlipidemics, we should actually know about the meaning of hyperlipidemics, or what is the condition called as hyperlipidemia. So hyperlipidemia is, it is an abnormal amount of lipids, abnormally high level of lipids present in our blood. Okay, and antihyperlipidemics are the drugs which act against, through various kinds of mechanism of action, which act against the lipids. They're helping us to reduce the level of lipids present in our blood. So further, if we talk about the lipids are of three types. For an example, the lipids are of three types. Lipids can be found in the form of cholesterol. Okay, lipids can be found in the form of phospholipids, and lipids can be found in the form of triglycerides. So these are the three forms in which the lipids can be found in our blood. So further, these lipids are insoluble in our blood plasma. Okay, so they need some kind of passage. They need some kind of medium for the transportation purpose. For that, we have the lipoproteins. So these lipids are traveling in our body, are traveling in the blood through a special medium which we call as lipoproteins. And now if we talk about the structure of the lipoproteins, that what parts of the lipid it contains. So for example, this is the structure of the lipoprotein, hypothetically of course. And outer structure of the lipid is made up of with the hydrophilic shell, and inner structure is made up of the hydrophobic core. Hydrophilic means water loving, hydrophobic means water fearing, okay, or water hating. So outer part of the lipid, this structure is formed of the hydrophilic, or rather I should say hydrophilic core. Rather I should say that it should be the lipoproteins. So lipoproteins have the outer structure as hydrophilic core, and inner structure, for example this one, the inside one, this structure is made up of hydrophobic core. So this structure is the hydrophobic core. Further, this hydrophobic core is made up of cholesterol and triglycerides. Remember I told you that cholesterol and triglycerides are the part of the lipids. So lipids have three components, right? So these are the lipids components. These three are the lipid components: cholesterol, phospholipids, and triglyceride, among which cholesterol and triglycerides are the part of the hydrophobic core of the lipoprotein. So this is the structure of lipoproteins. Okay. Lipoproteins. So basically lipoprotein have the outer core, which is the hydrophilic core, and the inside of it there is the hydrophobic core. Hydrophobic core is made up of two components of the lipids, which is cholesterol and triglyceride. Hydrophilic core is made up of phospholipids and apolipoproteins. So hydrophilic core is made up of phospholipids and apolipoproteins. Okay, phospholipids and apolipoproteins. So these two parts are making up the hydrophilic core of the lipoproteins. Again, lipoproteins, let me tell you that lipoproteins are the passage for the lipids through which these are kind of capsule for the lipids, by the help of which lipids are flowing inside our blood. Okay. So this is about the lipoproteins. Further, if you talk about cholesterol, cholesterol have further many kinds. For example, the triglycerides, for example, the chylomicrons, very low density lipoproteins, VLDL, low density lipoproteins, LDL, and high density lipoproteins, HDL. Okay. So let me write for you over here, for example, the components of cholesterol. Okay. So what are these? They could be the chylomicrons. They could be the very low density lipoproteins, VLDL in short, low density lipoproteins, LDL in short, and high density lipoproteins, HDL in short. Okay. So these could be, you can say that they could be the component of the cholesterol if you talk about the cholesterol. Further, talking about the triglyceride, if the triglyceride level in our blood gets low, that means in that case VLDL, very low density lipoproteins, start converting into the low density lipoproteins. Now you must have heard about the low density lipoproteins and the high density lipoproteins, that usually people say that low density lipoproteins are bad cholesterol for us, and HDL, which is the high density lipoproteins, are good cholesterol for us. Now what is the reason behind this saying? The reason is that whenever the triglyceride level goes down, VLDL, which is very low density lipoproteins, they start converting into the low density lipoproteins, which is the LDL in short. Okay. Now what happens? That function of the LDL, function of the low density lipoprotein, is to take the cholesterol, into the cells for the synthesis of steroid hormones. Okay. So whatever steroid hormones are making in our cell, they are with the help of the LDL, low density lipoproteins. So LDL function is to take the cholesterol into the cells for the synthesis of our steroid hormones. However, for the excess of the lipid is taken up by the liver for the synthesis of bile acid. As you know that the synthesis of our bile acid is the function of the liver, one of the function of the liver, and further bile stores in the gallbladder, right? Whenever we need it for the digestion purpose. So for the synthesis of bile acids from the cells, liver takes up the amount of the cholesterol. Further, some amount of cholesterol is taken up by the high density lipoprotein, which transport it back into the liver. That's why the high density lipoproteins are also called as good cholesterol, because they are taking up the cholesterol, they are taking up the excess cholesterol which is present in our blood back into the liver, right? And LDL, why we are calling it as the bad cholesterol? Because in some cases the cholesterol can be found in the blood and they can start depositing over there. For example, you must have heard about the condition which is the atherosclerosis, right? In the atherosclerosis, what is happening? The cholesterol is start accumulating in our blood vessels and causing the obstruction in the blood flow, right? And that obstruction can cause many various kinds of diseases. One of the example is the atherosclerosis, right? That's why the LDL or low density lipoproteins, they are called as the bad cholesterol, and HDL, high density lipoproteins, they are called as the good cholesterol, right? If you talk about with the help of a diagram, it will be very easier for you. For example, if this is the liver, okay, if this is the liver over here, and let's say that here is our LDL and here is our HDL, right? LDL and HDL. Now, what I said, that LDL, low density lipoproteins, they are carrying the cholesterol, okay, they are carrying the cholesterol with them, and they are sending them into the cells, okay. So for example, here they are sending them into the cells over here, okay. Further, now from the cells, the cholesterol can go into the liver directly, and if however whatever amount is left, HDL, physiologically HDL takes up that cholesterol, and send it back into the liver. Okay, so they are sending it back into the liver. So that is the thing, that's why we are calling it as good cholesterol. However, LDL is not directly sending the cholesterol into the liver. Okay, so in the cell there cholesterol, here is the cholesterol, right? The cholesterol is going into the cell for the purpose of the synthesis of steroid hormones. In the liver they are going for the synthesis of bile acids, right? As LDL is not sending the cholesterol directly into the liver, so some kind of cholesterol can be found in the blood vessels, which can cause the conditions, the situations like atherosclerosis, right? I hope this concept is clear. Now moving further, now let's talk about the real story of the anti-hyperlipidemics, and let's come over to the drugs. Which drugs and which classification are there to handle such type of situations, to handle such type of increased level of cholesterol inside our blood, which could be very dangerous to our body. So anti-hyperlipidemics have various classification. Let's talk about that. That what drugs are classified under which classification. So they have wide variety of classification. Let me rub this portion. Among them, HMG coenzyme A reductase inhibitors are very popular, which we also call them as statins. So let's talk about those classification. Okay. So we have HMG. So now we are talking about the classification, right? Classification. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about the HMG coenzyme A reductase inhibitors. Reductase inhibitors. Okay, I hope you can see this. HMG coenzyme A reductase inhibitor, also call it as 3-hydroxy-3-methyl glutarate coenzyme A reductase inhibitors, if you talk about the full form of this term. So 3-hydroxy-3-methyl glutarate coenzyme A reductase inhibitors. Okay, we also call them as statins. What we call them as? Statins. Very popularly they call as statins, not this name because this name is bigger, so we call it as statins. Okay, now what drugs comes under this category if you talk about? So there are various drugs, they ends with the statins. Okay, so however, if you are not remembering the drugs which are classified under this classification, HMG coenzyme reductase inhibitors, just call them statins. Whatever drugs are ending up with the statins, okay, they have the suffix statins, so whatever drugs they are ending with the statin, they're going to be the anti-hyperlipidemics, and they're going to be classified under the category of HMG coenzyme A reductase inhibitors. For example, whatever pills you see, for example captopril, lisinopril, ramipril, for example, like that, these are the drugs for the ACE inhibitors in the antihypertensions. For example, olol, whichever drugs are ending up with the olol, the suffix olol, atenolol, metoprolol, atenolol, metoprolol, okay, carvedilol, these are the beta blockers. So whatever drugs are ending with the olol, they are the beta blockers. So these are kind of the things which through which you can remember various kinds of classification of the drugs in various topics. Okay, so statins, which drugs comes under it? Atorvastatin, okay, lovastatin, fluvastatin, pitavastatin. So you can see that all of the drugs, they are ending up with the statins. Pravastatin, rosuvastatin. So there are many drugs actually, rosuvastatin, and these are kind of similar drugs. Simvastatin. Okay, so these are the drugs actually which comes under the category of the statins, and as you can see, they all are ending up with the statin. Okay, so they all are ending up with the statin. By which you can remember these names. Okay, now there is one more category, which is the nicotinic acid. In the nicotinic acid, we consider usually the niacin. Okay, nicotinic acid, niacin. So the drug, you can say, that is the niacin. Okay, third one, we have the fibrates. Okay, we have the fibrates. Okay, under which we have the drugs like, you can, I have made the mnemonic like GF, which means like, you can remember it with the term like girlfriend. Okay, GM, G for gamfibrozil, and F for fenofibrate. So let me write it with a different one. So gamfibrozil and fenofibrate. Gamfibrozil and fenofibrate. Okay, these are the drugs which comes under the category of fibrates. So they are ending, for example, fenofibrate is ending with the fibrate. This is the more common drug as far as fibrates are concerned. Okay, so fenofibrate, this is the example of the fibrate one. Then further we have cholesterol absorption inhibitors. Okay, so we have cholesterol absorption inhibitors, because if the cholesterol will be absorbed, then it can increase in the level of LDL, which is not good, which is the bad cholesterol, of course. So cholesterol absorption inhibitors, and the example is ezetimibe. The drug which is very popular in this category is ezetimibe. Okay, further there are more drugs, for example bile acid sequestrants. So let me write over here for you that they are the bile acid sequestrants. We will talk about each and every drug in the upcoming video, in the next video. Okay, in this video I'm talking about the classification and some points about the hyperlipidemics, so that you can really have the concept about the lipidemics, hyperlipidemics, and against what structures and what will be the mechanism, how these drugs gonna act against the lipids, high concentration of the lipids. Okay, so that you can really understand about it. So bile acid sequestrants, in which we have the classification like 3 C's, very simple. So C, and C. Okay, so for example colsevellum, colstipol, and cholestyramine. So you can remember them with 3 C's. Okay, you can remember these drugs as statins, you can remember these drugs as 3 C's, you can remember it with a mnemonic like girlfriend. Okay, so you can make your own mnemonic so that you can really remember about these drugs. Okay, because usually in exam you may be asking about these drugs. Okay, so the sixth category, you can say, let's say that it is the PCSK9 inhibitors. In which we have alirocumab and evolocumab. And alirocumab. Okay, so these are the drugs which can be considered under the category of PCSK9 inhibitors. Okay, however, nowadays we are very popularly we are using the omega-3 fatty acids, which you may have heard about this earlier also, omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, the fish derivatives. So let me add about these also. So let me add about this over here. So the 7th one, we have the omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids. Okay. Now, what drugs can be considered? So here we have the docahexanoic acid, for example. Docahexanoic acid, also DHA. Okay. Docahexanoic acid, eicosapentaenoic acid, right? So eicosapentaenoic acid, EPA, also we call it as EPA in short, icosapentaethyl. Okay, so these are the three drugs which we consider under the category of omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, so total there are 7 categories which comes under the classification of anti-hyperlipidemics. Okay, in the next video I will talk about each and every classification, each and every category in the detail, that how the statins are working and how they are lowering the amount of cholesterol in our blood and amount of low density lipoproteins in our blood, as they are bad cholesterol, right? And usually these kind of categories increases the high density lipoprotein, which is the good cholesterol for us. Okay, so how they will do this, how they are acting, how they are reducing the LDL and increasing the HDL levels, increasing the high density lipoprotein level in our blood, I will talk about that in next part, the upcoming video of anti-hyperlipidemics. Till then, be happy, stay tuned for more. Thank you so much.